Hello everyone. In the previous video I created just a simple home page that said hello just in here. Today I have added more feature to that home page, um, and you can see the code for the index HTML here. So what I have basically done is I have added a div in which this section for hello, and there is two inputs which I have given the ID fname and lname, which is first name and last name basically, and I have given a button, and upon clicking this button a function called full name will be called, which is a JavaScript function. And here there is a section which will just show t. So the main task is that if I enter like my first name, whatever, and last name, and upon clicking this button um, these two values will be sent to the Python function which resides inside this views.py using AJAX, and that function will combine this first name and last name and give me the full name. Let me show you here. So if you click this button, the full name function will be called. And what does this function do? So this is a JavaScript function which I have put here inside the head, and here I will use AJAX to call the Python function. So in the script I have used the source for that AJAX library basically, and in another script tag I have implemented that function, the function called the full name, as defined here. So inside the full name, what you basically do is you create an AJAX call in which the data you want to send is the data inside this data div. So I have not used form in here, because if I use form, when I click this button the page reloads, and I don't want that. I want to stay in the same page and do my thing. So I have used a div instead of a form, and I have given that div the ID, the data div. This is the ID of this div, and I can access all the values inside this div using this ID. You will see it in here. Okay, so inside the data div we will look for the inputs, which are these two boxes, and then we will serialize. So this is one of the formats used. So this will be encoded inside the data. This data will be received by the Python function, and the URL is URL Python function. I will show you how this URL works. Type is get, and if this call succeeds, then success function will be called, and if error occurs, then error function will be called. Success function and error function, they have been defined in here. So the success function basically what it does is, if this AJAX call is successful, then the function, this Python function that has been called, that function will return some value, and that value will be received in this success function as response. And if there is an error, I will show an alert as error. So Okay, when we click this button, this full name function is called, and inside here you make this AJAX call. What this AJAX call will do is it will take all the input values inside this data div, which is two input values, input f name and l name, I mean first name and last name, and it will encode it into this data and send to this Python function. So where is this Python function? This Python function is defined inside views. So I'm using Django, and I define all the functions necessary inside this views.py. So here that Python function has been defined, and this request is basically when this Python function is called, remember we send some data from here. This data will be received by this Python function in request, and from that request we will extract the first name using this code and last name using this code. So then I get these two Python variables which contains the first name and last name that we entered from here, and the full name will be made from the combination of first name and then a space and last name, and then we will create a response. What do they call this? An array in which this full name index will contain the value of the full name, and then we'll return it using the JSON response. So one thing you have to do is import this JSON response inside this view.py, otherwise it will not work. And when this is returned, it will be, this is basically an array with an index full name. So when this is returned, it will be received by this part, success function, in response. And then I should have given another line in here. Then we will change this document dot get element, which is basically, let me show you. And then after that we got our full name inside this response function, and what we want to do is we want to change this section, which is this section. To do that, we will target this paragraph using this ID p1, which we are doing here, document.getElement by ID p1, which is the ID of this section, and we will change its inner HTML to the response. Remember, the response contains the full name. Response contains the full name in full name index. So inner element will be set as the response dot full name, and another thing you have to do is set the URLs according to the name of the function. So inside this view I defined Python function. In URLs you have to give the path like this. This is any name you can name it any way you want. This is not going to be rendered, so just give it a name, and then define the function. So it has been defined inside this Python function is inside views. So views dot Python function, and name is also Python function, whatever, doesn't matter. So you just need this URL pattern to be added in this urls.py, and then when I click this button, you will see this two strings has been combined, and without even loading the page, it's returning the full name and showing it in here. So in this way you can do many things, like you can do anything basically. You can add more inputs like this, and then just pass the value to this uh, Python function or any function you want. This is the one of the simplest way that I was able to find by searching many websites, and I think this is going to be helpful.